Philadelphia is a city of neighborhood business corridors, more than 100 of them. And according to the Pew Foundation, more than 21,000 small businesses are in these neighborhoods, and they make up 76% of area businesses. Small businesses is the backbone. Our next guests work and live in these neighborhoods and have directly experienced what the pandemic has done to small businesses. It's been ravaging in some cases. Some have survived, but I just don't want to, as I said a minute ago, be rah-rah. It's been tough on everybody. Jim Burnett is CEO of VestedIn, formerly known as West Philadelphia Financial Services. VestedIn is a CDFI, a community development financial institution, a lender to businesses and entrepreneurs in Philadelphia, as well as 6 other counties within Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. It's great to have him with us. Andrea Custis, I just mentioned, is President and CEO of the Urban League of Philadelphia, which operates an entrepreneurship center providing technical assistance, strategic planning, connection to resources to help small businesses grow. Urban leagues are in all of our major cities in America. They're really changing the game for so many folks. Sunny, I'm going to make sure I get this right, my friend. Sunny Phanthavong. Is that close? Phanthavong. I apologize.
That's very close, actually. That's
chef
great.
and owner of Vientiane Bistro. With her parents and sister, she has been running their popular small family restaurant since 2002. And I can't wait to get up there to try it. I'm in Philadelphia a lot. It's a real pleasure to have you on. Look, let me just start. I was talking about the Urban League just a minute ago, and as I think about CDFIs, before we get to Sunny, I'm interested in what organizations that are making loans, what organizations are out there trying to build competency and create partnerships, give people second chances. What do you need, and what do your clients need to change some of the numbers that Daryl Clark and I were just talking about? Andrea, would love to kind of get your, I love urban leagues. I've, talked to them all the time. I think there's not enough attention paid to the stories of the success stories you're doing, but I know it's been a tough time. What do your people most need in this environment?
Thank you so much for asking. And we see over 500 entrepreneurs. And when you ask them, what is the number one thing you need? There is no confusion. It is consistent across the board, and it is access to capital and access to loans. It is very difficult to be African American and to go to a bank and be able to get capital or a loan. And so that's the number one issue, whether you are small or a medium size. We deal with small and medium size. The other piece that they will tell you that has been such a struggle in general, but even it has been more emphasized since COVID-19, and that is really access to the resources that they need. When you look at the small businesses we see, it is very difficult for many of them to have the accounting systems that they need to really absolutely understand the cash flow so that they can make intelligent decisions. And so when you look at that, what you see many times is one person handling a lot of different areas that require different skills and competencies. So we need to invest and give them the help that they need. We did a lot around PPP this year. We spent a lot of time, both times. In fact, we were able to get a PPP under the CARES Act and just recently. So we are experts at teaching people how to do it. Many of our Black-owned businesses were not able to do it. Want to know why? Because their taxes were not up to speed and they did not have all of the financial documents that they need. So we have to try to figure out how to have a shared model of resources so that many businesses who can't afford that by themselves can share a resource where it would be more cost effective. And so I could go on, but I will also let Jim get in there.
You want to get Jim in because he may be able to solve a little bit of the capital thing. But I would say, another dimension, what you just shared is so important that many companies may have been scrambling, may not have had all their paper, they may not have had all of that built in. And thus, the system didn't allow them a gateway in. And on the front end of the PPP thing, there weren't concierges to help folks. And the other thing I learned from somebody in the state of Pennsylvania who kind of is in the economic governance area said, people don't talk about it much. There are a lot of small businesses in cities that still operate often in cash. And if they're operating in cash, that's not on the books and they get excluded. So Jim, I see you nodding your head. I mean, I don't know if I'm mentioning things that should never be mentioned, but I heard this out there, and I tried to tell my friends in Washington, you're missing a big chunk of American business, the way you've organized it. But tell us how you've been trying. I mean, I love the fact you used to have a radio show called There's Money Out There. So tell us a little bit about your approach to thinking about loaning, making loans and, dealing with the capital sides of this economic equation.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it. I think some of the challenges that we dealt with, and you saw a lot of that exacerbated through COVID, was the fact that unfortunately, a lot of these businesses do have problems. It wasn't even the fact that they didn't have accounting system. They didn't have computers. Right. They didn't have copy machines to make copies of the tax returns that their accountants would give to them. So they couldn't submit them into the electronic documents that were required for the applications for whether it's PPP or other grants that they could have received from whether it was a city. The CDFI network, Pennsylvania CDFI network, of which VestedIn is a member, was able to bring together 17 CDFIs from across the state, 11 of which were in Philadelphia, and we delivered $250 million worth of grants. The challenge now is to take that leverage that we've created collectively and go raise additional capital for these small businesses. And so one of the initiatives in Philadelphia happens to be with the Chamber of Commerce and the local banks. And the local banks have committed to doing up to $100 million in loan funds, but it's not enough. During the grant applications that we did for the CDFI program, unfortunately, we turned down 50,000 businesses across the state of Pennsylvania. Wow. Even with $250 million in grants, because the applications that we received for over $1 billion for 60,000 businesses. So there's a huge demand. I think Andrea is exactly right. We want to make sure that these businesses are prepared, that they have the systems and processes in place, and that we work together to make that happen. There's one good story I will tell you from barbershops and salons in Philadelphia. There's a group that was created during COVID. Pennsylvania Professional Image Alliance was created, didn't exist before COVID, but these barbershops and salon owners decided that they were not going to be able to get capital on their own if they applied individually. And so they came together and have raised and helped each other fill out PPP applications, fill out the grant applications, and have done a marvelous job. And so where you had an industry that came together, it actually worked. And you've seen that similarly with restaurant industry, where they've had the lobbying ability to get resources for their particular industry. So I think it's really important for these businesses to come together and not work by themselves.
Sunny, I want to get to your wonderful story, which I've been reading about, and I am addicted to pad thai. I know the Vientiane Bistro is extremely popular, and you've done really well. But just kind of, I have an aversion to feel-good stories. Tell us about the struggle you had, and then how you see light at the end of the tunnel.
So I just want to say, first and foremost, thank you for having me here. I actually want to go back to what Jim Burnett just said about getting together. I did had a lot of restaurants come together and they're like, hey, did you get the information about this loan or this grant? And it was nice to get all the small businesses together to share those information. So I can definitely agree with Jim that having these businesses get together to share information about the application, the process, the necessary paperwork that needs to be done.
And did you get loans, Sunny? Did you succeed in that process? Can you share a little bit about that with us?
We actually got the SBA small business grant. We got that, and with the city of Philadelphia, we also got the small business grant, and with the LIST program sponsored through Wells Fargo, we also got that as well.
So that has helped you get to where you are now, and you're still out there serving your clients.
Definitely, those grants and those PPP loans definitely help my business to stay afloat during pandemic.
One of the things that I'm interested in, Sunny, and I'd love to get everybody's perspective. I've done a lot of interviews. Now, admittedly, a lot of the interviews I've looked at micro businesses, which are technically smaller than small businesses. They're often a single person or just a couple of people, could be a family. And that micro businesses fall beneath the radar of a lot out there, but they're incredible. When you I was working with GoDaddy, which is the largest internet registration firm in the country, and they were looking at these micro ventures, tons of them in Philadelphia. But I'm just sort of looking at that level, whether there's more that we should be doing. Should we be having business incubators? Should we be looking at how folks with, as you're talking about barbershops and restaurants, is there a dimension where we can come in and create new opportunities and platform with e-commerce? I don't know the answer, but it seems to me that might be in the purview of Urban League or things that a CDFI has begun thinking about. But Andrea?
Yes, I love that. And in fact, if you look at I will say a large portion of Black-owned businesses, it's usually one person. There are a lot of one-person businesses in the city of Philadelphia. I'm speaking because I used to be an entrepreneur, had with my ex, maybe that's why we're an ex, Jim and Sunny, I don't know. But I used to have a jazz club, and we also had a food business, and believe it or not, it was the two of us, and then we were able to get 3 other people to assist and help. So I think there's opportunity there for one woman, one man show, and I think that's what also is very applicable for shared services. I love the example that Jim gave. I talked to somebody lately, I think it was David Dix, who told me that story, and it makes sense. I can tell you here what we've done is we also, with the National Urban League, some of us formed a new group, just like we're talking about that Sunny's referring to. The new name is the Black Restaurant Accelerator Program, and it's going for technical assistance and training and also grants for restaurant owners. But I think there's a great opportunity to bring community groups in, like the Urban League and other groups that can help coach and train and expose a one woman or a one man show to a lot of different skills and competencies. I mean, we help people with business plan, marketing plans. We help individuals who are starting a business, and they're usually a one person show, but those who are also doing the same thing, and we know that's insanity when you expect a different result. And so they're learning and are very open to new and different ways to do it. So we help them with new marketing plans. Usually they're doing the same thing over. We're showing them really how to use the internet better. How do you make sure that your business is up top? So there's a lot of training and development that we could do for a single owned business. And by the way, real quick, we did that with some young, I shouldn't call them young kids, but they're extremely young. They were like 18 and 19 years old. We had a little mini entrepreneurship program for them. And let me tell you, the number one thing that I found in that group was creativity and innovation. They were young. They just needed to understand how to do the business part of it. So that's the piece that we were teaching them. And they were all Black males. It was a one man show,
Wow.
And they really benefited from it. And it really took their business and accelerated it to a whole different level. They were like so happy and pleased because they learned.
Show and tell is always powerful. But I want to make a deal with Sunny. I need to jump to Jim in it, but I want to do a deal with Sunny. I'm a jazz addicted and food pad tied. I think we ought to get jazz, your restaurant and Jim's friends together, and we'll have a night up in Philly.
Definitely.
But Jim, let me on a CDFI, I really I have a lot of friends in the financial arena and a lot trying to do to fill these gaps and to sort of look at it. And I guess the tension that I always feel is I get someone like Sunny or hear these stories and they're wonderful, but the truth is they're kind of boutique stories. And they're boutique stories, which is not to be negative. They're wonderful and special and we should learn from them. How do I scale Sunny? How do I scale what you're doing with finding loans and teaching competencies? Because I talk to community after community, and I know that even our sponsor, I mentioned Wells Fargo's trying to figure this out. How do you scale connectivity with the Black and brown community that has been marginalized in a lot of the discussion. How do we scale that? And because I know that you've been in this business for a long time, I can just sort of feel it emanating. Do you have insights on what we ought to hear and the policy community ought to hear on scaling some of these initiatives?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is just ask Sunny if she wants to be scaled. There are plenty of small businesses that are fine just the way they are. They operate a restaurant, they're happy with it, they send their kids to college, and it's okay. I think with those businesses that are interested in scaling, we need to bring the resources to them that will help them to scale. And a lot of that is trying to first assess the business and seeing if it is something, or the idea in some cases, but even before it even gets to being a business, do they fit what could be scalable? Is the product or service that they're looking to deliver is something that can be scalable? And then how do we tie technology to it? But part of that is just making sure that they have the right advisors, they have a good team around them. And one of the things that we've been able to do is just build relationships. And a lot of the cases of small businesses we talk to on a regular basis who are interested in scaling, they don't know how to connect with an accelerator. So what we try to do is connect them to like a science center or University of Pennsylvania or other places where they can get the resources and build the networks that they need that leads them ultimately to the capital. I think the other piece that's really important that Councilman Clark referenced is we have to give them the opportunity to fail. And because if they only get one shot at it, then you're basically changing their entire mentality after that one chance, right? It's like all or nothing. My entire life is over and I'm 21 years old because I failed at something that other people may have failed at, and they keep going because they have more resources. We can't do that. The other thing that we need to do as investors is go into the conversation with these businesses as if they can actually be successful. Because part of the problem is we go into these conversations thinking that they're failures because they happen to be people of color. And that puts you in a totally different position from a capital standpoint where you're already adding additional risk to the equation that isn't really there. And so to the extent that we can eliminate that right off the bat, we'd be starting in a great position. I
really appreciate you mentioning it. I'm going to give the last word to you, Sunny, and ask you two things. Where is Vientiane in Philly? Two, what part of town so I can get there? And then two, what else do you most need as a small business owner other than, getting off our show and getting back to work?
So we actually have two locations. I recently just opened a second one in 2018 after spending 16 years with my family. I wanted to expand the family business, so that's why I opened the second location. So the first location, which is the original, will be in the West Philly part of town. And for my location, we are in the Kensington part of town. And going back to getting the resources, the Commerce Department of Philadelphia, they were the one who actually helped me choose the business corridor of Kensington to revitalize the neighborhood. And that's where we're at right now.
Well, thank you for that. Well, let me thank all of you. Sunny Phanthavong, chef and owner of Vientiane Bistro, which I can't wait to get to. Andrea Custis, President and CEO of the Urban League of Philadelphia. Jim Burnett, CEO of VestedIn, a CDFI actively engaged in the economic future of Philadelphia. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.